Hope I didn't upset anyone too much by that triggering V-word conversation, but you know, somehow it is really triggering. It causes a lot of anger around the conversation. And, you know, I no longer preach to people about how they should be vegan and all of that stuff. You know that. You never hear me doing any of that. And so, you know, I will say I have gotten a lot of negative, nasty, hateful, angry people when I did shut down that non-vegan blog. And I have to say, I do take offense to that. That to me has always felt like, let's say there's an alcoholic with a really life-threatening alcoholism disease, and they decide to get clean and change their life and not do drugs and alcohol anymore. And then the people who only knew them as that get pissed off because, well, what do you mean you're not going to drink and hang out with us anymore? Not to mention, we love that rum cake you always made us. How dare you not give us the recipe or make that for us or hang out with us anymore? Like, that to me is kind of what it felt like when I got so much pushback for transitioning my life, my business, my website, my YouTube videos to vegan because of a decision I needed to make for my ultimate well-being and the peace of my soul, if I can say that. Hey everyone, what's up? So I am not wasting time getting from one episode to the next because I feel like it is just chock full of so much drama that just never seemed to leave me alone. So in the last episode, episode 8 of Storytime in the Bakery, I ended up that exhausting timeline of events with my decision to move to Florida almost a year after I had sold the bakery. I'd just wasted close to $30,000 on lawyers fighting for my Woodland Bakery blog website and YouTube channel, but to no avail. So now I walk away with nothing, a shut down website and YouTube channel with barely enough money left to keep me afloat for 1 year as a single person living in New Jersey. I'm still hanging on to that boyfriend that refuses to leave his mother's house. So now what do I do? And this is where I decided to move to Florida. My mom and stepdad had a rental house that they agreed I could stay in rent-free for a few months until I got back on my feet. At that time, I had been living in my third rental in New Jersey since I'd lost my house to foreclosure just 3 years earlier. And I was paying $1,500 a month for a tiny little cottage in Lake Hopatcong, New Jersey, with really nothing that was begging me to stay there. So Florida was looking pretty good for a restart. But once again, I'm skipping over some of the other things that were going on at this time that I was in the legal proceedings with Jason. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch episode 8. And then you'll know all about why I'm even in this position. So during the whole time that the WBB was falling apart with Jason, the girl that I sold the bakery to slapped me with a cease and desist, or she would sue me for continuing to use the Woodland Bakery name in my videos going forward. And I was to scrub the videos previously where I was using the name. Like, obviously I used the name. After all, we named it Woodland Bakery Blog after my bakery. So this was actually laughable because the timing was just impeccable. I mean, Jason and I were literally in the process of falling apart. So I was like, go ahead, sue away. There's literally nothing to sue me for. I have nothing left. But the worst part about this happening was that when she and I did the actual bakery sale, my lawyer specifically asked me if I wanted to put language in the contract about this, like the continuation of Woodland Bakery Blog even after I sold the bakery and all the intellectual property that I had amassed during my time there would obviously still be running on my channel, which would allow me to still use the Woodland Bakery Blog name even after I sold the bakery. But I was like, nah, she and I are friends. Nothing's gonna happen. We don't have to add that in there. Besides, she had even emphasized and was excited about the benefit that we could both be for each other by still having the association. Like, she was excited that I'd be promoting her bakery through my videos, and even offered that we could rent the bakery kitchen so that we wouldn't have to change up the videos too much. But the logistics of that was just really not a good idea. And of course, Jason and I ended up getting the studio. But all that excitement and nicey nice, and the fact that I continued to support her from the day I did the sale, at all hours of the day and night, by being available by phone whenever she had any questions about her new bakery. Like, I wanted nothing but success for her. And suddenly I'm getting slapped with a cease and desist. So again, this was just laughable because, I mean, how many people can sue me at once? I mean, I'm like, don't even worry about it. It's all ending anyway. But nonetheless, I tried to distance myself from the Woodland Bakery name as much as possible because, you know, she just got really ugly about it all. And believe me, I was so done with anything and everything that had to do with that bakery by now. Her biggest complaint was that people were calling the bakery looking for me from the videos, and it was disrupting her business. And yeah, I mean, that was definitely a thing. All the way to the Crumb Boss days, I had people calling my bakery, and many of them just wanted to actually order things, and I was shipping pastries through the mail at that time. And again, some were pranks from kids, but you knew it right away if that was the case. Yeah, annoying, yes, totally, but manageable. So I get it, definitely annoying, but I trained my staff to handle the calls and direct them to actually buy something or to just distinguish the call quickly if it just seemed to be like somebody wanting to chat, like a bakery hotline or something. So she could have definitely used all of this to her advantage and sold crumb buns or, really anything through the mail like I was doing since 2011. She could have tapped into a whole online audience just by using my online presence, which was associated with that bakery. Or at the very easiest, just say, Gretchen sold the bakery, click, goodbye. So anyway, I do know that at the time of the sale, I definitely put it out there that I had sold the bakery. I mean, like, obviously I did. The whole set was different. I was no longer in my bakery. Like, of course, I explained to everyone about this transition. I'm no longer at the bakery, like all of it. But I suspect it was more than that because around her first Thanksgiving holiday in there, I was looking at her Facebook page and she posted like blatantly bold campaign about new ownership to make sure everyone knew I wasn't there anymore, which is fine. I mean, totally fine. But if you remember all the way back to my second or third episode, I explained about my first holiday experience in my new bakery and holiday customers, the ones that come around only once or twice a year for their holiday items. So they didn't know that Mario sold it to me. So I think the same thing happened to her that happened to me when I bought it. Like, all of a sudden these customers come in that only come in once a year and they're like, oh my God, where's Gretchen? And what did I get faced with? Oh my God, where's Mario? He's not here anymore. What will we do? You better not ruin this bakery. So most likely people were saying, oh my God, Gretchen's not here anymore. You better not ruin this bakery. And there's a lot of ego there. That's a sensitive topic, and naturally. But where I sat back and let things run as they were, don't forget, I bought a successful business. I certainly didn't want to ruin it either. But she, on the other hand, had set out on a mission to scrub me, my name, my vibe, so to speak, right out of that bakery. And I kept in touch with Maria, who was still working there for her after I left. And she was telling me things like she was being told not to decorate cakes and cupcakes a certain way because that was the way Gretchen was doing it. And she wanted so many things done in just a different way so that everything just didn't look like my way. So that's what was happening there. It was more ego driven, in my opinion, to get any association of me out of that bakery, because it probably just rubbed her the wrong way to be compared to me. So as you can see, the entire thing at this point just was a real bummer. And I decided the best thing to do was to just take the offer to move to Florida and start over on my own and get as far away from the Woodland Bakery as possible. Except the one thing I just couldn't seem to break free from was that dang dumb relationship. Yep, I know. Very unhealthy and dysfunctional. Can you say codependent? And it won't be long, though, before I start to realize this and really start to dig into the root of my relationship problems. So I know this bakery story time often spins off into a deep psychological analysis of my personal relationships and the dark side of who I am and how I was being through all of these challenges, but I do feel that it's relevant as my story unfolds. Like, all of it plays into the next thing and how I move from one place to another. And ultimately, I will catch up to where I am today. We're not that far off. And the life that I am finally living today. So maybe this is all just TMI and everyone is just like, oh my God, already, who cares about your stupid boyfriends? Like, talk about the bakery. So please comment below and let me know what you think of this whole saga. Is it TMI? Like, is it boring? Or are you finding the transitions from personal experiences to bakery experience go hand in hand? I mean, for me, it's all part of my story. So, all right, I made the decision to go to Florida and start over, but I had the intention that it would be temporary. Like, I thought I would just move to Florida, rebuild my business as Gretchen's Bakery for a year, definitely no more than 2, and then come back to New Jersey and live happily ever after with my new success and my old boyfriend. And perhaps what we just needed was a good old-fashioned separation to see just how much we loved each other, right? So at that time, I still didn't see how badly this relationship should have ended in 2012. And now here we are at the start of 2015, and I'm just dragging this whole thing behind me. And you know, it definitely takes 2 people, and he was also holding on with a death grip, knowing full well, I'm sure, that this just wasn't right. I mean, it was clear that we both had some real issues around relationships, and I will say here that it has been through this one, and definitely other ones earlier on, and I didn't even get into the one that's coming next. Oh my Lord. But I have learned so many lessons to get me to look at me and why I feel the need to hold on to what is not working for me. So, you know, at 50 years old, I've finally come out the other side with a very clear understanding and, more importantly, a gratefulness about it all. But it was through this relationship that I was able to, for the first time, take a look at my role in all of this. No more victim, poor me, how could he do this? Like, oh, I didn't even get into what he did yet, though. So, but basically what I'm saying is all the decisions I made to get to where I was taking responsibility for them for the first time. You know, I'm a big believer now that we all get rewards in staying in something. Like, how do I say this? We don't stay in anything unless we're getting something out of it, right? Like, no matter how twisted up that something might be, we stay until the pain no longer benefits our soul, right? At least that's been my experience as I look back on, you know, feeling like I'm absolutely at my bottom with certain things, and that's the breaking point. So I get up and I change things. So, you know, I do believe that a great friend once told me, through growth is pain, but suffering is optional. Ooh, that gave me shivers. I just believe that we always do get exactly what we want. And, you know, my words have just always told a different story. The poor me, I'm such a good person and I deserve to have a man who treats me as such with respect and love and blah, blah, blah. Those words didn't actually match my lifelong belief that I was none of those things. Like, my inner dialogue was far from telling me how great I was. On the contrary, it was a constant berating of how terrible and imperfect I was all the time. And if you don't get it right, Gretchen, they're always going to leave. From a childhood with a narcissistic father that I was always playing to for attention, who ultimately left at 3 years old, and a codependent mother who was emotionally unavailable, I learned early on how to people please. So there's the deep psychological analysis, and let's get back to the boyfriend. And I'm on my way off to Florida, and we decided we'd be staying together with a long distance relationship. And I remember it clear as yesterday, sitting on my couch in a packed up apartment, about to leave in a week, saying to him, what we're about to do is going to be really hard. Long distance relationships are really hard. So please, if you catch your eye on someone else while I'm gone, please don't do that to me. Every single boyfriend I ever had since I was 21 cheated on me. Please don't be that guy. If you want to move on with someone else, just break up with me. And then he said, don't be a quitter. We're not breaking up. You're coming back. And that was pretty good validation for me that we were going to stand this test of time. And with that, I left for Florida. It's interesting how new chapters always feel. There's like this hope and excitement and energy when we set out on a new endeavor, right? Like, I'll never forget the wise words of another one of my angels in the bakery, Zoya. She also came with the bakery when I bought it. She was an employee of Mario, and we are still friends to this day. Like, I love her. And so I remember when I met this particular boyfriend back in 2011, and I was just so excited. And she said, okay, very good. How long until he is a jerk? Now, Zoya is from Bulgaria, and that was my attempt at a Bulgarian accent, but she was always just such an interesting person and hardworking and funny and had so many quirky words of wisdom. I just love her so much. But anyway, by now it's 2015, and yep, he is a jerk. But I was just really happy to be leaving behind everything that Woodland Bakery was to me for 10 years. And it's actually really sad that most of my memories in the bakery were negative and difficult and challenging to the point of almost breaking me. Like, from the first day to the last day, it was not a happy, fun experience. And as I look back on that now, with 10 years of separation, I look at it differently, and I am very proud of myself for persevering. And I can confidently say that I made that bakery better when I left it than how I bought it. So I am proud of everything that I did, but the experience was never easy. The friendships that I made along the way, though, and I still have to this day, are priceless. And with all that, yes, there were very happy memories and moments with people in that time, and they were really beautiful. But overall, most of the memories make me recoil. Sometimes I have dreams that I'm still working in the bakery, and the interesting thing about these dreams is that every time it's very dark, like as if the lights weren't on. The entire dream is just really dark and full of anxiety and stress. And that was sort of the vibe back then. But again, after 10 years of separation, I can now look back and appreciate the actual bakery itself. Like, man, that poor bakery. If I can personify it somehow, like, I kind of feel sad for it. It was the canvas for so many things, the launching pad for even where I am today with this YouTube channel and website. But it was a literal drain of resources. Both of my spin-off businesses were draining it, and I don't know, I felt sad for the actual bakery, if that makes sense. Like, how do you feel sad for something that's not even a real thing? But anyway, here I am on my way to Florida with my 2 cats and my aunt and cousin driving the U-Haul packed to the brim, a 2-day drive, and finally I arrived in sunny Palm Coast, Florida in mid-July of 2015. I couldn't wait to set up my studio and start filming new videos for, my 3rd channel and website called simply Gretchen's Bakery. A solo gig. Well, and many people, my viewers had left me by now. Some people were just like, nope, I am done with this girl. How many times can this thing fall apart and rebuild? They were just over the drama. And believe me, I hear you on that one. But I really wanted this to work. And I absolutely loved and still love teaching recipes and sharing the baking passion. And now, knowing that if I continue doing the business part of it the same, after all, Jason and I had a couple of really great months with like $3,000 and more, but that was always split between the two of us. Imagine if I could make $3,000 a month doing this. I mean, even that's not much money, like $36,000 a year as a single person, that's pretty crappy. But that was really all I asked for, like by now I've really simplified my life. I became a literal hermit, basically working on rebuilding my video arsenal and website from morning until the wee hours of the next morning. And I remember my mom saying, Gretchen, do you ever leave the house? Nope, not really. I'm on a mission to make this thing successful and fast. Since I only had a few months of rent free, I needed to get this thing making money as fast as possible. My time spent in Florida, it was practically in solitude, but it was something that I really needed. I think I had PTSD or something from the 10 years in the bakery that was trying to kill me at every turn. And then the 2 YouTube channels and the partnerships and just all the work, like the nonstop work for a decade that went into building all of my businesses. Just to have them all go nowhere. Lawsuits and Indian burial grounds and bakery falling apart around me and customers suing me. Like, enough, right? But I was now beginning to gain some confidence in myself for once. The Gretchen's Bakery channel was doing really well and really fast, and I realized just how much I actually bring to the table, that I don't need other people as much as I thought I did, at least not as far as business and partnerships went. So I joined a gym again, and my daily schedule was wake up about 9, go to the gym for an hour or 2, come back home, film videos all afternoon and evening, and then edit them until 3, 4 in the morning. Wash, rinse, repeat. I was soon making close to $2,000 a month though, and guess what? It was all mine. But I did need some help with all the back end stuff. If anyone knows anything about business online and websites, it is kind of crazy. There is so much computer speak that you need to know, like HTML coding and search engine optimization, and also known as SEO, and the constant changing of Google algorithms, and this elusive, mysterious formula for how to get your website to the front page of a search. This is all a full-time job in itself. And look, I never discounted all the things that Jason was doing for our website. I mean, he was valuable to it all, just as I was. We were a good team when we were good. But imagine trying to also learn and understand that whole part of it now. I mean, just optimizing pictures so that my website page loads in less than a second is really important. Tell me, when you click on a web page, don't you click off if it doesn't load in less than 3 seconds? Yeah, me too. So I started learning that I didn't know squat when it came to the actual website part of it. Even just updating the actual database monthly is necessary but tricky, since if all the plugins don't jive, I could wreck my entire website. And I know this is all really boring. Believe me, it's all really boring to me too, which is probably why I couldn't ever learn it. But real quick, do me a favor, do a quick Google search of vegan baking. My website still doesn't come up on the first page. Like, it's insane. The literal title of my website is Gretchen's Vegan Bakery. And if I'm lucky, I come up on page 5. No one scrolls past page 1. So what I knew was that I needed help if I wanted to make my website really known and climb to number 1. And this brings me back to the long distance relationship part. Stay with me. It's going to be relevant, I promise. The ultimate falling apart of Gretchen's Bakery and the decision to start Gretchen's Vegan Bakery was helped along when my website was literally destroyed. And this happened at the hands of a third party. Perhaps not exactly intentional sabotage, but I can point my finger at one person in particular that got me in contact with this SEO company that was supposed to help me, but instead they literally broke my website. I'll never forget looking at the analytics, and I was consistently making about $30 a day at that point, which is still crap, but it's $30 a day. And I watched it go down to zero in like half a day. Talk about having a heart attack. But wait, rewind. How did I get with this horrible company in the first place? Okay, I've been in Florida since July, so I had taken one trip back to New Jersey back in September, and he came to visit me one time in November. Then by February of 16 now, my spidey senses were off the charts and I knew he was seeing someone else. Women have some crazy intuition, and this was something that I had felt several times before in the past, because remember I mentioned every single boyfriend I've ever had since high school cheated on me, and something in me just triggers my suspicion and tells me that it's true, and it had always proven to be true. So I just knew. Not to mention, I am Sherlock Holmes when it comes to finding out anything and everything through social media. And I dug up pictures of these two through other people's profiles. Like, I am super sleuth. If this bakery thing doesn't work out, I am going to be a detective. So we were on the phone one night and I straight up just asked him if he was seeing someone else. And he confirmed it. So why then did I not break it off? Psychology 101, super dysfunctional, codependent, and I also have this fight to the death personality. Oh, it was on like Donkey Kong. But the stress of all of this caused my hair to start falling out. And no, I wasn't vegan yet, so it wasn't that. However, I did go on what I call my boyfriend is cheating on me with a 22-year-old diet. So although it wasn't a vegan diet, it was a pretty strict diet nonetheless. I actually went to a hair doctor and he diagnosed me with telogen effluvian, which is basically where the hair follicles go into a death phase, most of the time through a trauma or a shock response to something. And so for a few months, it continues to fall out until it gets back into the grow phase. So, like, here is my ego in full view, like ugly ego stuff right there. So, without going into the gory, nasty details of months of fighting for him, and I look back as if I was fighting for some huge prize, like he literally had nothing to offer. He was just much better suited for a 20-year-old and not me, but I had to go through this. And it was through this heavy breakup and breakdown that I realized for the first time, well, maybe not the first time, but it was in my face, the low level of self-esteem that I had when it came to relationships. But I guess even business partnerships can get included in that too. Like, I don't know, I just always felt like I'd never be able to do anything alone. And I'm on this constant lifelong search for the perfect partner in love and business. You know, and it's like, how much will I take that's not good for me before I speak up about it? So I had to ask myself, what would someone who loves themselves do? And it certainly wasn't this. So this was the beginning of my emerging. I think I was 42 in 2016 and just starting to give up the victimhood and, you know, really looking at myself and the role that I played in getting myself into all of these situations, you know? So I worked through so much of my stuff in those dark, alone hours of my solitude of living in Florida from 2015 to 16. And, you know, my remaining time spent in Florida, I was beginning to, you know, work through all of it and kind of get happy about me and everything I had built for myself with the Gretchen's Bakery website with no help from anyone. Like, wow, I'm actually really kind of awesome. So, okay, so then how did my website get into the hands of this company that destroyed me? In my fight for this man-child, a friend of his back in New Jersey had previously known that I was having trouble with finding help for my website, and he knew some people who were the best, in quotations. So he and I began corresponding via email, and somehow the conversations sort of turned into like a confiding in him. I mean, not really confiding, but like he had a way of pulling out of me, I guess, my anger over the whole situation with the cheating and my disdain for man-child's actions, and just kind of explaining to him what was happening with the relationship and why this was happening, and boo-hoo, poor me. Okay, so old habits die hard. I'm still not an expert at giving up the victim at this point. I'd just gotten a glimpse of it so far, so give me a break. But it was through these sneaky conversations that like, I think I explained to him, like, my hell bent on still wanting to be with him and coming back to New Jersey so that we could be together. And I suspect that he didn't want that at all. Like, he, for whatever reason, maybe through confiding with the man-child about the state of the relationships, just knew that we were better off not getting together. So in retrospect, you know, he probably did us both a service. But so he got me in contact with this company, SEO company, who about a month later wrecked my entire website. Now, I can't be certain if this was intentional, like, did he pay them to do it kind of thing? I mean, I doubt it, even though, you know, it was clear that he didn't want me coming back to New Jersey to continue this relationship. He thought that it would have been better off for us to just break it off, which, you know, in retrospect, I agree with. So anyway, what I did realize later about this SEO company, that it was just run by a bunch of kids, like 20-somethings. They revamped my entire website to, you know, like this newfangled design that was hot at the time, I guess, not realizing that a food blog recipe website is very different than just a couple of page website that is used to display a business, you know, like the yellow pages. This is what they were used to dealing with, not a huge interactive food website with multiple pages. Like, my huge website database has hundreds of pages, videos embedded, like gigantic, and definitely not the kind of thing they were used to working with. So as I mentioned, I watched my revenue go from like $30 a day to zero in a matter of 12 hours the day they did the transfer. Essentially, they broke all my links to Google. So without trying to explain what the back end of computer coding looks like on a website, because I don't fully even know, but basically, you know, it's the way that Google recognizes and serves to you whatever it is you're searching for in a matter of seconds. So basically, all of my communications with Google was completely broken. Google had no idea that I even existed anymore, so I wasn't getting served up to anyone, even when you did a word-for-word search of the title of my recipes. So I want to say that this was around the summer of 2016. I can't really remember the details of this time. For whatever reason, it's very vague to me, but I did scramble to find somebody to help me fix this. And somehow I did. And he was just like, this is a literal mess. And all the communication to Google is broken. And we had to start with one page at a time to fix the links to get it to talk to Google again. It was a slow, painful process. And all the while, I'm not making a dime except for the YouTube videos, which for me was never a good moneymaker anyway. Even when I was getting upwards of 10,000 views on a video, the ad revenue from YouTube has always been really bad for me. I think I've never made more than $700 a month on YouTube at my best time. And for the last 6 years, it's not been more than $150 a month. But it was here that I decided to make the switch to vegan. Now, how is all of this related? I know I haven't talked a single bit about the lead up to this decision, since all of the other craziness was happening with the douchey boyfriend and my ego breakdowns. I was, however, emerging through all of this into the person I always wanted to be. Someone with huge compassion and love that was always just shielded by fear through never being enough and attracting then people who agreed with that sentiment and always treated me as if I was never enough. It's always perfect, don't you see? I believe we are definitely matched up with people who will fulfill the very essence of how we are being, right? Mirror, mirror has never been more true. And if I believe I'm not enough, I will be sure to be matched up with someone who also sees that I'm not enough. I mean, if I think everything's always going to fall apart, everything will always fall apart. It can't be any other way. The universe will always give us what we believe is the truth. So, I did struggle with that idea because I'd always, I never felt like I was doom and gloom, like I was always waiting for the next shoe to drop. I always had, hope and excitement of whatever it was I was building, and hope and excitement that the relationship would work out. And while I guess a great friend of mine once said, after I was crying to her saying exactly that, but I'm a good person. I deserve to have someone who treats me with love and respect. And she said to me, if you truly believed that, your life would look very different now. So I guess I'm digressing to say that this was all an emerging of the true me, like going through all of this stuff, like it's a constant sort of chipping away through challenges and hardships of who are you going to be? And I said that in an earlier episode, who are you going to be in the face of all of this? And for half of my life up until now, I was not being that person. So at this point, I was finally able to let go of the boyfriend, but in a way that was not hate-filled or jealous. I truly came to a point where I was able to just let him go because I did want for him whatever it was that he wanted, even if it wasn't me. And that's a hard pill to swallow. So I realized that I was no longer there to fix him or change him for my benefit, but able to walk away with the knowing that I am enough. Maybe not enough for him, and thankfully so, because when I looked at that relationship closely and what it consisted of, it wasn't truly what I ever wanted anyway. So by now, I'm feeling really proud of who I'm becoming and what I had accomplished, and I realized I was tired of living lies just to please other people. However, we'll come back around to that since, once again, old habits die hard, and if I thought this was my worst relationship thus far, I hadn't seen nothing yet. The next one is soon to come, and just wait for that one. But right now, in terms of lying about being someone or something that I'm not, this is where the vegan transition came into play, especially regarding the lie at the end of each video where I would stand there and eat the cheesecake or whatever dessert I'd just made and talk about how great it was and tell you all how much you needed to make this. No, I wasn't enjoying it. I even stopped eating all of my creations towards the end because I just couldn't stomach it anymore. Just knowing that it was loaded up with tortured animal ingredients. All the way back in my bakery years, I had moments of, what's the word for it? Moments that would stop me in my tracks when the weekly deliveries would come in. Hundreds of dozens of eggs, gallons and gallons of milk and heavy cream, and hundreds of pounds of cream cheese, and hundreds of pounds of butter. And this was weekly and on a slow week. So I would sort of get this jolt just seeing all of that and thinking to myself, this is just not right. These poor animals that are producing all of this just for my small bakery. I couldn't even really be with the thought. And so I wouldn't be with it. I would just sort of push it to the back of my mind, and I never did anything about it. So please understand here, I am not judging anyone. This can be a very triggering conversation, and I know everyone here who's listening to me is not vegan, and I understand full well cognitive dissonance, believe me, and an unwillingness to actually look at the truth, because that requires us to change. To face the truths and actually do something about it can oftentimes be too much. So I had been vegetarian since 2009, and I never really understood the dairy and the egg thing, but when I finally did see the horrificness of the horrors of these businesses, I still kept using it all for another 2 years. Like, look, the egg industry is horrific and the dairy industry is worse. And I refuse to debate anyone who has not looked at this for themselves. Like, until you see a mama cow crying real tears as she chases her baby who's just been born minutes ago as it got loaded up into a cart to be chained up for veal, or if it's a female, she gets bred into the same life as the dairy cow mom. So, and this is all just so we can drink her milk. Only then will I have an honest conversation with you about why we shouldn't be drinking cow or animal milk. Again, I know this is triggering for a lot of people, and you're probably getting angry because I'm saying these things, but I will not debate anyone about this until they have for real looked at the actual horrors of animal agriculture, not the flowery portrayal, or rather betrayal, that is pushed out there about happy cows and chickens. So when you see the actual sickness that is our factory farmed food industry, only then will I have this conversation. But this is not my intention to talk about all of that. Again, I don't have these debates with anyone. And if you still want to support it, okay, you're a very different person than me. But for me, this is where I decided I had to make the switch for my own well-being, for my own soul well-being, to be free. After all, how can we preach of love and compassion for everything on earth when we have death and torture on our plates? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's a huge disconnect. And, once I became vegan, I am being very honest. I can say I truly found some peace inside of me that I'd never known, that I had not recognized my whole life. There was just, I can't explain it, but there was just a level of peace that I now could claim as mine. And not to mention, once I ditched dairy, oh my God, my skin cleared up. I just sort of looked clearer and definitely less puffy. Man, I was puffy. I was like marshmallow. And I was less bloated all the time. So in a nutshell, this is where the transition to vegan happened. The complete destruction of my website by this company. But I will admit and have to ask myself, had my website not been destroyed, would I actually have done it? I mean, at that point, I had nothing to lose. So it was sort of a lame way to make this huge statement. Like, I didn't take this grand stand for veganism with a decision to shut down my entire website until my website sort of shut down. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even shut down the non-vegan website once it got fixed for another 2 years. I left it open and free to the public all the while I was only making vegan videos and recipes going forward. So I was definitely still on the fence. And, not to mention, I was scared because I did not know how to bake vegan. I was classically trained and thought, you can't bake without eggs. Like, how on earth will I even begin to make a cake with no eggs? But I set out to try anyway, and my first video as Gretchen's Vegan Bakery was aquafaba Swiss meringue buttercream, and this is still one of my most acclaimed recipes. I bet you someone somewhere right now has some bean water whipping up in their mixer with my recipe printed out right next to them. So this decision to transition the website to vegan happened at the end of 2016, and at that same time, I made the decision to also return back to New Jersey. So, I mean, I liked Florida, but remember, I still wanted a husband. And now that I'm in such a great place mentally and emotionally, right, after cutting the strings with man-child after 5 years of going nowhere with him, I just felt like I had to return home to where I knew people and where my family was. I mean, yeah, my mom and stepdad were great, but I was only 42, and it's not like I was going to meet him playing Scrabble with them on a Friday night. My sisters were back in New Jersey, my cousins, and, well, it was just familiar territory. So off I went again, packed up the U-Haul, and back to New Jersey again. And I wasn't even home 1 week before I met the next one. The next one and the last one in a long line of progressively worse relationships. I was flying high with my newfound confidence, and perhaps how this one zoned in on that energy. Now, I'm not one to throw the latest catchphrases and overused labels around, but I can tell you what, this was straight up, full-on covert narcissist that for the next 5 years nearly took me down to the ground and almost buried me under it. You know, I think the universe came back around to put my words and newfound confidence to the test, and I was called out for, once again, being full of boop. I quickly fell back into the old habits of codependency. So, while maybe as I look back over all my relationships over the last 2 decades, I could say that I was experiencing narcissistic tendencies with these boyfriends for sure, like one after the next. But it also seems that each one got more and more intense after the last, spanning 2 decades of relationships. And while I'm someone who will walk through the fire to prove my love for you, like I am telling you, this fire was literal hell. The worst experience I've ever had in a relationship, but also the best when I finally came out the other side, because apparently the last one had only given me a glimpse of self-worth where I quickly fell back to the basics with this guy. This one broke my spirit over 5 years of mental and emotional abuse that I'd never experienced, and my breaking point came as even a surprise to me. But I'm going to get into that one a little bit more in the next episode because it is relevant to how I got to where I am now. But I also skipped over the 5 years of building Gretchen's Vegan Bakery while all of this was now going on. So now I'm back in New Jersey. I'm, trying to build up yet my 4th website and YouTube videos. And, it's really no wonder that nothing ever fully manifested for me because I was always giving most of my attention to some guy. But I said it before, my biggest wish since childhood, even more than having a bakery, was to have a husband. I had the ultimate white picket fence dreams from a very early age, and my life mission was hyper-focused on getting that. So, all right, let me wrap this one up here. I will continue in the next one with the building on Gretchen's Vegan Bakery, the eventual final shutdown of that non-vegan blog after sitting on the fence with that for 2 years, and then how I got back to Florida once again in 2020. I hope I didn't upset anyone too much by that triggering V-word conversation, but somehow it is really triggering. It causes a lot of anger around the conversation. And, I no longer preach to people about how they should be vegan and all of that stuff. You know that you never hear me doing any of that. My wish is to just hope that people understand that you don't have to give up anything by going vegan. And so, I will say I have gotten a lot of negative, nasty, hateful, angry people when I did shut down that non-vegan blog. And I have to say, I do take offense to that. That to me has always felt like, let's say there's an alcoholic with a really life-threatening alcoholism disease, and they decide to get clean and change their life and not do drugs and alcohol anymore. And then the people who only knew them as that get pissed off because, well, what do you mean you're not going to drink and hang out with us anymore? Not to mention, we love that rum cake you always made us. How dare you not give us the recipe or make that for us or hang out with us anymore? Like, that to me is kind of what it felt like when I got so much pushback for transitioning my life, my business, my website, my YouTube videos to vegan because of a decision I needed to make for my ultimate well-being and the peace of my soul, if I can say that. So for everyone who still is upset with me, think about what it is you're saying to me. You're honestly mad at me because I wanted to elevate my soul here in this lifetime. And through veganism, I know that I've done that. So, all right, this has gone really way too long. My cats are hacking up their lungs. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, I'm wrapping up now. And so more to come in the next one. What are we going to go on now? Episode 10? Definitely comment below. Let me know how you're liking this or not liking this. Jesus, Lucy, are you okay? She's on antibiotics. My cats got hit from a stray cat that was coming around here with an upper respiratory infection. All 4 of my cats got hit really hard. I was in the vet every single day and animal emergency all last week. It's unbelievable and very scary to see how quickly, oh my God, my cats got this infection. So anyway, that's what I'm dealing with, and we'll pick it up in the next one. Thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, happy vegan baking. Bye for now. Oh my God, Lucy, are you okay? We're going back to the vet on Friday, I promise.